All right, so Algebra 2. Here is what we are doing. We're reviewing 2.5 to 2.7. So you did an assignment last night in our textbook, so we're going to go over that real quick. And then I have a review assignment for your quiz tomorrow. Scatter plots. Scatter plots and lines of best fit describe the correlation from each set of data. So in number 48, you were using the information to create a scatter plot. Now, tomorrow you're going to have to do that by hand and on a graphing calculator. So by hand, the directions are over here. You graph your line on the scatter plot, then you find 2 points on that line, you find the slope of the line, you use point slope form, get your equation, and then plug in the missing value. So in number 42, we had to change all of the months to be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then you use that to find your equation. So you got y equals 38x plus 34. And then in 43, we had y equals negative 5x plus 49. Okay, 44 and 45 asked you to graph. So their graphs are over here in the margin. And 44, you had a piecewise made up of 3 segments with breaking points at -1 and 3. You can see here that this line was decreasing, increasing, and increasing. That being said, the domain is all reals because for every x, there is a value of y. And then the range is going to be from 0 to infinity because 0 is the lowest point. 0 is not included because it is an open circle. 45, that function started with a constant, so that's this horizontal line right here, has a slope of 0. And then we had a breaking point at -1, and then the graph from -1 to 3 increased, and then from 3 on also increased. That makes our domain all reals because our breaking points match up. And then our range is y values greater than or equal to -7, since that was the lowest point on the graph, and there is a y value defined at every other x value. So again, you could go here and anywhere on your graph, you would find a y value to match it. Okay, in 46, you were looking at that piecewise function right here, and you had to give its equation, which means you needed to take into account the slopes, you needed to take into account the breaking points, what's included or not included. So in 46, there is our answer. And we skipped 47 and 48 because those are integer functions and we did not discuss them. Okay, yesterday we talked about identifying functions and what they represented. 49 is a quadratic and 50 is an absolute value. If you had an absolute value function, then I would anticipate that you could identify its vertex, domain, and range. So the equation of that absolute value function, its vertex is at 0, 1. The graph is reflected. So that would be equal to y equals negative absolute value of x plus 1. It's reflected and up 1. And again, that's something I would anticipate you could do. Similarly over here, this is an absolute value function. It is shifted down 1, 2, 3, 4. The slope is 1 over 1. So this is the absolute value of x minus 4. Just looking at the equations in 51 and 52, you should have been able to describe them. So this quadratic would be shifted down 3 because of the -3 after the equation, and this one is reflected because of the negative in front. Anything raised to the second power is a quadratic, so its graph will be an arch or a parabola. I had you jump over to page 127 and look at example 13. 13 is once again a scatter plot, so you had to graph your data. If I give you a blank scatter plot graph, then I would anticipate that you label the x-axis and the y-axis as well as plot your points. These points appear to be going upward. That is a positive correlation. Using that graph, you could pick two ordered pairs and write your prediction equation. In this case, the textbook got approximately 17x plus 107. You're looking for anything in that range. So maybe you had 15x plus 110, or maybe you had 20x plus 105. Again, all of those are valid. They're very similar. Much like your prediction, it should be similar to 209. Okay, and then in 14, when I show you the answer, they made a little error. They started this graph at -2. It should be an open circle at +2. So we're ignoring this part over here. Yeah, I'll just void it out. Okay, so here's what your graph would look like. And then in 15, you looked at the graph and gave me the equation. So that pretty much summarizes everything you need to know for tomorrow. I would anticipate you can look at graphs of piecewise and match them to their equations. I would anticipate that you could find linear regression on the graphing calculator, that you have the ability to graph a piecewise function. If I gave you an equation for a piecewise function, such as 15, and I asked you to find a function value, so let's say maybe I asked you to find f of 0, I would anticipate that you know that to find f of 0 for something in 15, you have to look at where 0 is included and then go to that part of the function and get your answer. So in this case, f of 0 is -1. If I asked you for f of 4, 4 is greater than or equal to 3, so we use this equation. So f of 4 would be equal to 4 plus 1, which is 5. Right? So at this time, what I'm going to do is send you to complete an in-class review, and you're going to be able to use that review to study for tomorrow's quiz. So see the information below.